John, thank you so much for being here, man.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, John, I met you probably 2-3 years ago. We're both in a similar men's group organization called Battle Cry.
Yeah.
And you've quickly become a mentor of mine for a number of reasons, and this ties into why I want to interview you today. You are a man of God. You are a businessman. You are constantly looking to grow and evolve and challenge yourself. And those are all just things I admire about you, but there's also some things that have come up in the last couple of years that have been significant.
Sure.
Parts of your
Good
journey.
word. Yeah.
Right? And so I think diving into that story a little bit is going to be inspiring for a lot of people and probably very helpful to people who are going through different challenges and looking at fitness as this thing of, I don't know, maybe my best days are behind me, right?
Sure.
So
yeah, I'm happy to share.
Yeah. So I'd love to dive into that. So why don't you tell us more about just kind of the last couple of years for you and what that has looked like?
Yeah, so, I could go back further than that. I was the typical business owner who just put my health on the back burner. I had stories in my head about, your number one obligation is to go earn money and take care of the family, and you got points, meaning I got points for putting my health aside as, sacrificing for my family. I'm sacrificing my health. Don't you know how much I love you, family, because I'm willing to give up my health so I could go provide for you. And then, I came across some fitness stuff, and I'm like, I just decided to try it because I was a business owner. I'm a business owner, so I do have some control over my schedule. So I said, I wonder what it would be like if I just started working out in the mornings. Because I had a story that says, I need to be on the clock, 7 o'clock, you got to work 12 hours a day and stuff like that. And I said, well, who says that? I said, let
Especially if you're the boss.
Yeah, I'm not going to fire myself, right?
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to give that a shot. So I tried it and it worked, and that was really the start of my fitness journey where I just realized I could be more productive if I took care of myself. And I made time for it, and it got to a point where I think people, including myself, will do stuff if they're getting results. They'll continue. It's really hard to do a fitness journey if you do it quote unquote wrong, meaning you go to the gym but you don't change your eating habit, you self-sabotage.
Yeah.
And then you say, well, screw that. I'm not, this working out stuff is not for me. I'm just going to go back to work.
Yeah.
But
the journey
I
has
stuck
to be
with
satisfying.
it. Yeah, for sure. So then, I don't know how much detail you want me to get into. So
yeah, well, I would say I love both sides of the story, right? Because, I think we'll have to, if you're comfortable with it, we might have to link that picture somewhere. But, ever since I met you, I've always thought of you as a muscular, strong looking guy.
Yeah.
And then, I've only known you the last couple of years. And so I just assumed that was a way you always were. And so, when you sent me that picture,
you always thought I had hair too.
Yeah, with the hair, the big belly. I'm like, who the heck is this guy, right?
That was the guy who put himself on the back burner. That's why I used that picture. Wow. And the worst shape I got, somehow in my mind, it was like the more points I got.
Hey guys, quick break here. Just want to ask you guys to like, subscribe, and share the content with others who you think would benefit if you found this video helpful or any of our videos. Also, please comment. At the end of the day, we do these videos for you. We love your feedback. We'll always reply to the comments in the comment section and keep them in mind for future videos. There's something about that almost in our modern culture, here in America at least, where it's the sleep when you're dead, right?
I'm going to crush it, I'm going to set myself up and my family up, and sometimes it doesn't work. But, when we go back to the fitness journey, so I was at the gym, and I've always worked out by myself. I'm an entrepreneur, so I love people, but, I could do without people. So I spent a lot of time working out by myself and doing things on my own. And then I got to a point, it was probably 4 years ago, where I was like, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to actually, instead of just, walking from machine to machine at the gym and focusing on how I looked, meaning building muscle and always having a gut.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to try something different. So a guy came up to me and found me. I was just doing a walk. It was like a recovery day, and I was walking in the park, and a guy pulled over. I got my headphones on, and a guy pulls over. And, of course, I'm like, oh, for crying out loud, I just want to go for a walk. And now people are pulling over. So he pulled over, rolled down his window, said, hey, you look like a workout guy. Hey, we're doing some fitness stuff here. And I'm like,
which is a compliment already.
And I'm like,
you look like a workout guy.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, actually, I was kind of like, wait a minute.
Hey, cutie.
Hey,
right?
I'm married. Hey, I'm married.
Yeah.
But he goes, we do this group fitness thing. And so that was like in April. And I kept his, we traded numbers. He was a local guy. I kept his number. And then, it's just on the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, I should go try that. I should go try that. And I looked on their website. This was how I got introduced to F3.
Okay.
Which is the fitness program. The 3 F's stand for fitness, fellowship, and faith. So I went on the website, and it looked like a boot camp type thing. And I'm like, you know what? I'll try it like one day a week, just to get moving instead of just slogging from machine to machine, to do some activity.
Yeah.
And so that was like in April. I didn't go out till August. I just said, you know what? Today's the day I'm going to do this thing because it's early. I mean, they start at 5:15. Yeah. And,
especially you're outside, right?
And you're outside, yeah. And it was across the street from my house, so I didn't have any excuse from that to park across the street.
Oh, no kidding.
So I didn't have any excuse for that.
Yeah.
But I thought of some other stuff.
Yeah.
So I went and did it. And the reason I did it was because I found myself being just mentally mushy. I didn't really do it for the fitness aspect. I really signed up for that F3 program to increase my mental toughness. I just felt I was soft there.
Yeah.
And I needed some more challenge. And one of the things about me is I hate being cold.
Yeah.
And I know these workouts are outside.
Oh, yeah, physically cold,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, physically cold. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started in August. I went to the first workout, the boot camp, and I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
Because I went from, schlucking from machine to machine to running around with a 45-pound cinder block on my shoulder running up a hill.
It's pretty badass.
Oh my gosh.
It's hardcore.
And I'm like, seriously, you guys do this every day?
Yeah.
But I was smart enough to know that I don't have to be here every day, and I kind of worked myself
It's
in.
more of like an open invitation.
Yeah, it's open, yeah.
Okay.
They have AOs, areas of operation, where they have specific places where they meet. It's a peer-led workout. So one of the guys lead it, and there's a process, and it is a boot camp. It is like not like a military boot camp, but it has that feel.
Yeah.
Where everybody's doing the same thing. You're going to pair up, but they have a motto like leave no man where you found him.
Okay.
So even though I was the last guy, and all these exercises for months, there was a big support system. So as I started getting physically better, able to keep up with these guys, then it started getting cold.
Uh-oh.
And then I'm working out outside. And then it's a free workout. There's no cost for the workout, but I bought like $1,000 worth of outdoor gear because I hate being cold.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to be outside at 5:15,
Yeah.
freezing my butt off. And I made it through the winter. And I was so excited and proud of myself that I was going 3 days a week. 3 days a week. My coldest post, the wind chill was minus 28. And we're working outside. And so the mechanics of a cinder block holds moisture. So I think it felt like it weighed 100 pounds instead of just 45 in the wintertime.
I'm
right?
sure.
So I made it through the winter, and I was so excited because I really felt I felt mentally tougher, like mission accomplished.
Yeah.
And what I didn't know was that following spring in April, I went for a colonoscopy, and I got diagnosed with colon cancer. It was 2 years ago last month. 2 years ago next week is when I had my surgery. So as I signed up for that program to be mentally tougher, I didn't realize it was preparing me for that. Because I had, without getting deep into it, I had a lot of complications. I was in the hospital for 24 days in the month of May. I was supposed to be in and out in 3 days. I was up and back in the hospital for 24 days of the month of May. And I remember, man, I remember telling myself, if I didn't do that F3 program, I don't know what would have happened. I mean, I'm literally sitting there praying, I hope I live to my son's wedding.
Yeah.
And it was just, and I'm a healthy, I mean, the last time I was in the hospital was when I got my tonsils taken out when I was 7.
Okay. It's been a little bit of time.
It's been a little bit, right? Because I'll be 59 next week. So I'm like, that was the biggest thing for me, the mental aspect, how I just didn't realize that God was prepping me for that.
Yeah, it's amazing that, there's those types of stories, right? Whether you're a person of faith, secular, whatever, and so many of the stars seem aligned that it's like, all right, it's kind of hard for anyone at this point to think that
that's just coincidence.
Completely random. Completely
That was a
coincidence.
random act, yeah. Out of all the time, they've been working out, across the street from my house for 3 years. They had this thing going on. I never knew about it, because I'm not up at 4:45 in the morning every day. But yeah, it was a mental challenge, and it really helped me get through that illness part and the recovery part. And then I remember coming back and seeing you. I lost from April 20th to June 6th. However many weeks that is, I lost 42 pounds.
And this is when
I was in the
went through
hospital.
this.
Yeah, when I was in
42 pounds.
Yeah, and 6-7 weeks, less than 2 months. And I got a picture of myself. I looked like an alien. I mean, I was that skinny and morphed. And then I came here to see you, and I said, Danny, I got to get back on track. And you spent a day with me, and you were very kind, very gracious, as I beat myself up saying, oh my gosh, give me the pink weights. And I had to go back to, just moving. Just an empty bar. And I'm like, no, all that work I did is gone.
Because this is what you looked like, basically, prior to this.
Yeah,
which it's amazing that you've been able to get back.
Actually, I gained more back. I have
awesome.
more muscle now than I did before I went in the hospital. So yeah, I'm fired up about that. But as I went through the program that you got me set up, it got me back into fitness. And just like I said, you gave me the tools to give me enough progress to see results to keep going. And I've been going ever since. For 2 years, I've been going.
That's awesome.
And it's awesome. I love it. I'm 6 days a week now. It's just part of my routine.
Yeah.
I get up at 4:45. I leave the house at 5:30. I'm in the gym at 5:45, and I do all my stuff, and I take my time, and I'm out of there, showered, ready to go by 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love the routine. I'm a routine guy. I could do the same thing every day.
Yeah.
So I got to take advantage of that. So if I pack my days with good stuff and I
Yeah.
do the same thing every day, I get great results.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I thought when I was a little kid, because I was more disorganized and kind of lived in chaos, that, that's how I am. But the older I get, the more of a tight ass I kind of am.
There's something to be said for structure,
I'm like,
right?
yeah, spontaneous is probably not the way. I may have described myself that at one point. Probably not anymore.
This is the universal sign for that ship has sailed. That
Yeah.
ship has sailed.
Exactly. So there's a lot there, and one of the things, I'd love to understand further is when you started your fitness journey, right? It sounds like it was more for aesthetics than anything else.
Yeah. I didn't have, well, I mean, you saw the picture. I mean,
Yeah.
I finally got to a point where I'm just like, oh my gosh, you got to do something.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was squeezing in my 38s, and I was going to look at getting, almost, like laying on the bed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and it wasn't so much, I mean, I could snap it. It
Yeah.
was everything that was hanging over.
Yeah.
That was bugging me.
Yeah.
So it was that, and I just knew it. And it wasn't so much, it was more about allowing myself to take care of myself. It was about, it's about time I took care of me first, because if I die of a heart attack at 50, then I'm no good to my family at all.
Yeah.
So that was the thought process, is like, you're busting ass to provide.
Yeah.
But, they're not, and it wasn't an assumption. I mean, I got an awesome family. We've been married, me and my wife have been married 32 years. I got 2 grown kids. And I'm like, they actually want me around. I'm not just a paycheck, right?
Yeah,
and I was like,
yeah.
and I had to get out of my own way for that. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? You are adding value. you are here. You would be missed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I gave myself permission to go. Yeah, it was awesome.
What were some of the other factors going on? Because it sounds, how did you come to that conclusion? Because it sounds like it took many years, right? So what were some of the factors of, hey, I'm working hard, I'm a businessman, I'm doing what I need to do, and I can shelf that other stuff. Yes, you had this idea of I want to take more care of myself, but were there any life events or conversations?
There wasn't a trigger event. It wasn't like I went to the doctor and the doctor said, you need to lose 30 pounds, otherwise you're going to die. So I was grateful that I didn't have to have that hit bottom experience. Most guys, and you probably see this at the gym, most guys are coming in or making that decision because they went through the pain of a hitting bottom experience.
Yeah.
They get that note from the doctor, or they get that wake-up call from a family member, or they have a family history of everybody dying at 50 and 55, and
Sure.
they're like, oh, I'm coming up to that. I have a low tolerance for pain, so I didn't let it get that deep.
That's hard for me to believe.
I didn't let it get that deep, so I just made a decision. But the biggest thing is giving myself permission. I said, how am I going to fit this in? If I don't work out in the morning, it's over. Because my phone's ringing, I'm running out and doing projects. There's no way that I could work out. I tried it, even on days off as a business owner, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I'll go in later, and then it's packed, and then I'm waiting for machines. I'm like, I'm just going to get this over at 5:30 every day. Let all the other people stay in bed, all snuggled, and I'll get in and out before they even get in here. I don't have to wait. I'll be efficient. And that's how I started. I just had to give myself permission to do it once.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to do this for a month. I'm going to go 2 days a week for a month. And I was like, oh, crap, I'm not out of business.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Maybe I'm not that important. I'm not that needed.
Yeah.
And I had systems in place to ease this up a little bit. But it was that first step and getting results. Because if I would have did that for a month and still didn't have any results, I would have been like, this ain't worth it. I would have gave myself some other excuse. So,
what were some of those results you saw? Because it sounds like when you first started, you were more in the kind of the machines, the classic weight training.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yep.
And so you said a month. What were some of the things you saw change in a month?
So I realized after a couple of weeks that working out and not changing your eating habits, the famous saying for all the trainers is you can't outwork a bad diet.
Yeah.
I was determined to prove you guys wrong.
Yeah.
There's no way. Oh, okay, watch me. Hold my beer. Watch me. I'm going to do this.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
it's not. You're right. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So after the first couple of weeks, I realized that I'm not getting the results I have. Then I changed eating habits.
And the results you were looking for was weight loss
Weight
at that
loss,
point?
yeah. Because I had to lose some of this. Because remember, I got 40s in the shopping cart. I'm like, I'm not hitting the checkout button.
Yeah.
That was really a turning point too. But I lost some weight, and I was able to stay in business.
Yeah.
So that started the journey really.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
40s in the shopping cart. What do you mean there? Talking
My 40 ounces.
40
no, my
ounces?
40 waist jeans. My 40 waist jeans were in the cart.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
my 20s just came out.
I'm not buying them. I'm not.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
40-inch waist? I'm like, no way am I going to do that.
Drawing a line in the sand. Just
There's
can't
no
do that.
way I'm going to 40s. Because I have judgments.
Yeah. We all do.
Yeah.
So what were so it took in that first month there, some of the things you were seeing were, okay, I'm trying to lose weight. I'm starting to see some success there now that I'm, especially after making some changes with the nutrition.
Yeah.
How long would you say that first phase of your journey was of being, hey, I'm getting into weight training, machines, etc., prior to F3?
Yeah. Well, prior to F3, it was years prior to F3.
Okay.
Yeah. I started that fitness journey. That before picture that I sent you was probably from so I shaved my head in 2016. So it had to be 2014.
2014.
That I started. Yeah. So it's probably 10 years I've been on this fitness journey.
Okay.
Where I went from nothing. I was, I do P90X. I watch the videos. Oh, that's too hard. I'd stop.
Yeah.
I wasn't committed.
Yeah.
10 years ago was when I started committing. So I had 2 years in before I went to F3.
Okay. Okay. So in that,
Actually, yeah, more than that.
So when I would say again, anyone watching could see that you're a muscular guy. Were you there prior to F3? Were you able to accomplish that with strength training and just eating healthier?
Yeah, I was bigger. I was probably 225. I weighed 208 now.
Okay.
But I probably have more muscle now than I did back then because I just had a lot more fat. I was just a bigger guy.
Yeah.
And that was another thing too. I didn't want to shrink and be a frail old guy. And then I realized that I could lose fat, and it just enhances the way my muscle looks.
Yeah.
So once I realized that, then it was it was the way to go.
That's a big thing I talk about with a lot of my clients. It's just the idea of proportions.
Yeah.
Right. It's if you're a woman, for example, a lot of my female clients, they're trimmer, but maybe everyone has that idea of losing that other 5 to 10 pounds, but that last 5 to 10 pounds is often where you have to make the most significant changes, right? And so oftentimes I'll just say, hey, listen, here's another way to look at it. Build up your legs, build up your butt. Right?
Yeah, burn more resting.
Get in your upper body, right? You build those areas, suddenly that waist looks a little bit smaller. Same thing for the guys.
Yep.
Build the pecs, build the arms, build the shoulders.
Do a couple more pull downs, get the back a little wider, and all of a sudden my waist looks smaller.
Just that illusion, right?
Yeah.
And there definitely is something to that, right? Yeah. And so you were able to accomplish a significant amount just in the strength training, nutrition side of things. So when you got to F3, that was more of a mental shift for you.
Mental and I was moving. Like I said, I'm actually running, sprinting, moving versus just going
Prior
from
to
machine
that,
to
you
machine.
were already doing running and sprinting?
No. F3 started
that.
The movement phase of my journey.
Yeah. So what drew you to F3 might have been providential, but also what drew you there was the fact that someone talked to you, whistled at you, gave you a little cat call, right? But no, you exchanged numbers, took you a little while to actually make it happen.
Yeah.
So what were some of the things, I know you said you were not feeling the idea of being cold, right? And that didn't happen until wintertime. So what were some of the hardest aspects for someone who hears this and goes, well, strength training, I know what machines and strength weights are. What were some of the things that were distinctive about those F3 workouts? More almost boot camp style workouts?
Yeah. So the great thing is they're only 45 minutes. They're from 5:15 to 6 a.m. And then there's a 5-minute cool down. And then there's, the fellowship. Guys hang out and talk. And I didn't talk to anybody at the gym. I was going to the gym. I didn't know anybody at the gym.
Yeah.
I mean, I put my headphones on. Half the time I didn't even turn them on. I just don't want people talking to me. I mean, I want to get in and get out.
Yeah.
So there was the fellowship aspect of the F3. It was really cool knowing that the hardest part of my day was done at 6 a.m.
Yeah, that is cool.
That was really cool. And, I got some weird thing inside me about doing stuff that nobody else is doing. I knew when I got up at 4:45, actually when it was cold outside, I had to get up at 4:30 because it took me 15 minutes to put all these clothes on to go out there and work out. And I was literally like in a Christmas story, like the kid that can't put his arms down. Yeah. And there's guys out there in shorts, laughing at me. And I'm like, hey, man, whatever.
Yeah.
But it was some of the the fellowship stuff, and it was the community, and it was knowing that by 6 o'clock the hardest part of my day is over with. And I mean, when I first started doing that, I'd get home and I'd collapse on my family room floor and sleep for 2 hours. I mean, it killed me. I don't want to scare anybody off, but I didn't do any movement at the gym. I was just lifting weights.
Yeah.
The difference between weightlifting and training, physically moving, are night and day. You have to do both.
Yeah.
I did one of them for a long time, and then I started F3, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is, because I'm like, I kind of walked in there like, I should be able to handle this. I've been lifting for a while, and then, hey, grab that 45-pound cinder block, put it on your shoulder, and run up and down, the Hill of Champion that they call it. We call it the Hill of Death. They call it the Hill of Champions.
Yeah.
And, run up and down there, and you got your coat on and gloves on, and you got your hat on, and, you're just dying.
Yeah.
But, that was what I needed. That was what I needed. I'm like, I remember telling myself, it's only 45 minutes. You could do anything for 45 minutes. It's 45 minutes. It's 45 minutes. Giving myself that pep talk. And I started with 1 day a week, then I went 2 days a week, then I went 3 days a week.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And I got to say this, one of the coolest things about that is, so I had a community of guys that we were doing this with, and everybody has a nickname. So if the first time you go to F3, you kind of tell your story a little bit, and then they give you a nickname. I don't want to give away, so my nickname is Hitchhiker. So most people don't know my real name. I'm
No kidding.
I'm Hitchhiker.
Yeah.
So if anybody watching is going to go to an F3 workout, tell them Hitchhiker sent you from the Wood. My AO, my area of operation, is called the Wood, Shorewood.
Okay,
So it's called the Wood.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them out there. So you'll go and you'll get your official name. But I remember getting out of the hospital. I remember these guys were praying for me every day. I remember every day I woke up, I knew that at that workout, because there's a workout going on somewhere every day. I knew at that workout, they do a circle of trust at the end where they say a prayer, and I know those guys were praying for me every day. I woke up in the morning, and I'm like, and those guys already prayed for me. I got out of the hospital. They all did a workout on Saturday. They called me up and said, hey, Gizek, we heard you out of the hospital. We're coming over. And maybe 20 guys came over to my house.
That's awesome.
They brought coffee and stuff and checked in on me and how you doing. And I mean, it's just, I can't say enough good stuff about the F3 community. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and that's the fellowship.
It is. And I wasn't used to that. I was used to being alone, entrepreneur, doing this by myself, and having relationships with other men like we do in Battle Cry.
Yeah.
It's just phenomenal. It really locked in the fact that we are not supposed to do this ball of mud stuff by ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think anyone with eyes to see can see in this modern society, that's a big part of the problem.
For sure.
The lack of community, the
Yeah.
lack of connection. It's
Well,
like,
especially with men.
especially with men.
I mean, try to get a guy to talk about something else besides sports and football and, whatever else they talk about. I mean, have a serious conversation where guys can be transparent like we do at Battle Cry.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other place I know of that we can do that.
Yeah.
And it's a safe place.
Yeah.
Where guys could say, hey, man, I don't have it all figured out.
Yeah. It's a common
And
theme.
not be shamed.
I'm very grateful for my role with personal training because I would say in my experience, millennials and younger generations are starting to kind of turn the corner on this,
Yeah.
right?
You mean the fellowship
the
aspect?
fellowship and the vulnerability
Okay.
side of
Oh, yeah,
things.
sure.
Where we're opening other corners that shouldn't be opened.
That's right.
But that one, that idea of being vulnerable and comfortable, right? It's starting to shift, I think, with some of these younger generations.
Yeah.
Maybe almost too much vulnerability,
Yeah.
right? But I've had this awesome experience as a trainer over the years where I get these one-on-one interrupted interactions with people, right?
Yeah.
And how many times do you get that with
That's
your,
right.
your spouse, your friends, where it's just completely focused for 1
Yeah, you got
hour,
their undivided attention.
right? Yeah. And so I've gotten pretty close to many of my clients, and that's a theme that's come up for some of my older, especially like 40s, 50s, and 60s
Yeah.
male clients. That idea of, I remember vividly this one conversation with my client where he was really downloading. And at the end of it, he just goes, hey, man, this was really good. Guys don't really do stuff like this, right? And I said, well, I do, but I'm really happy to be that for you,
Yeah,
And
that doesn't just happen. I mean, you set up your personality and your caring to make that space available for somebody to do that. There's plenty of trainers that are there to just show you how to do push-ups and use the machine. I mean, you actually care. I mean, you're asking people questions. I remember when I came in, you're asking me questions about my family and stuff like that. It made me feel safe knowing that, hey, man, you know what? Yeah, I'm here to work out and learn how to do this stuff, but I'm also here to have a relationship. This guy gives a rip. And I got that from you when I came here.
Thanks, John. I appreciate you
No,
saying that.
seriously.
No, I do appreciate that. Yeah, it's I didn't get into personal training just for fitness. I just love people. So
And that shows.
And I made a lot of mistakes when I was younger, a lot. And so one of the things that was, I think that helped set me up was I had no misconceptions of how awesome I am, right? I've been in the mud, and I've
Right.
been on an outcast, and screw up all those things. And so when you experience that side of things, I think it sets you up to maybe be more empathetic,
Sure.
right? To be willing to kind of just go there with people, right? It's like, hey, man, I've been there too. I'm not going to judge you. Not saying I don't judge people, right? I judge myself, that's for sure.
Yeah, right.
But
now we're aware of it.
Yeah,
Now at least we're aware of it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but I appreciate you saying that. And so as far as you feeling like F3 setting you up for that mental toughness.
Yeah, for sure.
What were some of the things did you have any moments when you were going through some of those more boot camp style workouts where you felt like specific moments like, holy crap, this is so hard? Maybe like those moments where you're in the living room feeling like you're going to keel over.
Yeah, that and for every moment like that where I thought I was going to die, because everybody creates. That's
kind of scary for some people.
I know,
right?
But I mean, it's like your first time going to the gym.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no ramp up period for F3. Yeah, they accept all fitness levels, but I'm a competitor guy. I'm like, I'm going to keep up with the guy that's been doing this for 3 years.
Yep.
He blew me away in 10 minutes. I was done.
Yeah.
But I mean so it's that part, and then I remember when I wasn't the last guy anymore.
Nice.
And I remember even thinking, I'm like, you know what? If I could get somebody that's really out of shape to come here, then I won't be the last guy anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And somebody else did. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
But then I knew what it felt like to be that guy. So I helped that guy. I mentored that guy. I went slow with him. I made sure I didn't leave him behind because I knew how that felt.
And that's part of their value system, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. Everybody finishes together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. Yeah, as you were telling that story about thinking you were just going to show up, I've always had that side of working out part of what I've done because I've been in martial arts my whole life.
Oh,
like
okay.
there's always been like a high intensity element to it, and every once in a while they'll do some of that crazy cinder block stuff, right? Not necessarily like that, but my first exposure to understanding that one aspect of fitness is not all aspects of fitness.
For sure.
Was I was probably into weight training for about a year at that point, maybe even 2, and I put on a lot of muscle, gotten pretty strong, at least for me. And I was at the YMCA with my mom. We drove together, and she, I just, for whatever reason, I was not feeling my workout, which was uncommon for me at that point.
Yeah.
And my mom just goes, "Why don't you come to Pilates with me?" And I go, "Pilates? That's a woman's workout, Mom." I'm like 18 at this point, right? And
you mean where all the chicks go?
Yeah. So she convinces me, and then I go in, and then when the class starts, the instructor goes, "Hey, over here we have the 2 to 3 pound ankle weights and the wrist weights for those of you who are more advanced." And I'm just like, okay,
Yeah.
bring them on. Wouldn't you know where this is going. Within literally a minute, I'm taking the ankle weight off. My hips are on fire. I just shut my mouth.
All the old ladies are laughing at you.
Yeah, it was a long.
We got another one.
It was a long car ride home with my mom.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, let's not talk about this.
Yeah, right. This is between us, right?
Yeah, so it is fun to get exposed to different things like that because you do learn things about one, it could just be things you're learning about your body, like weak points in my instance, sure. Like those girly workouts, are sometimes today the things I'm doing on a regular basis with clients to keep their hips strong, which makes their knees healthy, et cetera, et cetera. But other times you learn these things about yourself, like, hey, what am I really made of, right? Like what am I capable of if I really have a group to push me or, a goal, something like that, right? And so when you were in this experience of dropping 40 pounds over the course of dealing with your cancer, right? What were some of those moments where you felt like you had to dig deep? It sounds like some of it is that you've obviously had a support system.
Yeah.
I'm sure without that, this may have been a different experience.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
But what were some of those things for you what were some of those conversations when you were going through that? Some of the lows.
Yeah, it was.
I'd imagine there have to be.
It was scary. I mean, it was really scary. From the get-go. I mean, I went in So I have an identical twin brother, and so he went for his colonoscopy.
Hi, Rudy.
He went for his colonoscopy at 50, and I'm like, yeah. Then he went at 55. He goes, you got to go. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, we're identical twins. You're good. I'm good. You know, isn't that how that works?
Yeah.
That's how that works, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And then really, honestly, and then I had another guy I grew up with, had some health issues, and I'm like, you know what? I should just go. And I just went to go check the box. I had no symptoms whatsoever. And I remember that doctor coming in after, and I saw the look on his face, and I was like, you don't have any good news for me. And he goes, I'm afraid not. And I'm like,
I'm afraid not. That just gave me the chills.
Me too.
I'm just like, and my wife was there, of course. And I remember driving home, we're like, oh my God, like, okay, what just happened here? So what happens now? And we scheduled the surgery. So I found out on some date stick in your head. I found out on April 6th. That was my colonoscopy. And then May 1st, my birthday. Here's a tip. Don't ever schedule anything traumatic on your birthday. Because whenever your birthday shows up, like next Thursday is my birthday.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about, 2 years ago, I was getting operated on, so don't ever do that.
Yeah, I can see that.
So we went through that, but you talk about a support system. So my wife and I have a great relationship. We've been married 32 years. She was at the hospital every day from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day for 24 days out of May. It wasn't 24 days straight, but every day she was there.
That's amazing.
It's unbelievable. And we never had a test like that. I never doubted that, I'm like, honey, you don't have to come here every day. And deep down inside, I'm like, thank God you're coming every day. All right, can we talk about something else? So it was a support system. Rudy, my brother, came in from Tennessee, stayed at my house, came and visited. It's the whole thing. When I was in the hospital, you're like, do you want visitors? I didn't want people to see me like that. I didn't want my kids to see me like that. I didn't know if I was going to leave the hospital.
Yeah. I'm
like, have them come just in case, but it's awkward. I remember going to see my dad in the hospital, and you're like, hey, okay, sitting with him watching TV, okay. But getting out of there, I remember I walked out of there, had to go back, walked out of there, had to go back. And they were like, okay, so you're going to be here for another week. And I'm like, I don't care how long I'm going to be here. I'm going to walk out of this place. And I kept telling my wife, I said, honey, don't worry about it. I will walk out of this place. And I did. June 2nd, I walked out of that place. Yeah. I remember getting in the car, outside air. And by the grace of God, I haven't been back. Had 2 follow-ups. Everything's great. I didn't have to go through chemo. They took out a foot of my colon.
That's great.
And I didn't have to do anything else.
Because I've had clients who've had cancer before, and whether it's while I've been working, actually not while I've been working with them, but people who have been, in remission.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, that's when it can really have longer term complications, when you have to get radiation and you have to get chemotherapy, and
then it's more likely to come back.
Yeah.
So, but it's weird. You talk about, I was supposed to go at 50 for my colonoscopy. Then I was supposed to go at 55. So I'm like, okay, so if I would have went at 55 instead of 57, and I would have, if I went at 55, they might not have caught it. It might not have been there.
Yeah.
Then I wouldn't have gone back until I was 60.
Yeah, you'd feel.
And then I would, because they say every 5 years.
Yeah.
And then I would have had it for 3 years before they found it, and it might have been worse.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy how, you said you can't figure this stuff out. It's just crazy how the sequence of events happened in perfect timing for that to be taken care of.
Being in a hospital for that long, losing all that weight, especially going into it being in my estimation, vision of health, a muscular guy, right? You still are. And having experienced that, not a lot of people have experienced things where they're, hey, I'm having to face my mortality. I'm having to face this thought that I might not be around, right? I haven't had to face that. scares me. I don't, to the point where I don't want to explore it any more than the seconds
this
I
conversation
just did.
right here.
But how has that affected you moving forward?
That's a great question, because it has. And I had the attitude that, not if I get out of here. When I get out of here, I got to take a look at everything. So when I got out of the hospital, I reevaluated everything that I do with my life. Everything that I spend my time on and everything that I spend my money on, I reevaluated. I did a zero-sum, graph about, okay, so am I doing the right business that I should be doing? Am I spending enough time with my kids? How am I spending my money? Am I saving enough money? Am I making enough money? Am I doing everything right? And then it goes back to, through Battle Cry, I developed a mission statement. And my mission statement is, I empower people to live in their true identity. And that's what drove the whole process. Was I'm like, okay, so if that's why you're here, how you doing? And I'm like, I'm not killing it.
Yeah.
So I said I probably should focus on me living in my true identity before I could empower others to live in their true identity. And that became my number one priority. So for the last 2 years, that's really been my focus on who I am, my relationship with God, and how I live in my true identity, and how to teach other people to live in their true identity, that they were created in the image of God. And I don't want to start preaching, but all that stuff became a priority because I was in the hospital. If I didn't get sick, I don't know if I would have ever taken that time to just reevaluate stuff and say, okay, where are you headed? Are you on the right path? I was just, autopilot. I wasn't asleep at the wheel, but it was autopilot. So that was a blessing in disguise, because I reevaluated a bunch of things. Then I didn't even question my time that I was investing in myself to work out, go to the gym, and eat healthy. That became a priority. Versus, if I get to it, I won't eat that stuff, or I'll go to the gym if I have time. It was like, okay, I'm going to take these, there's that big rock analogy. I'm going to take these big rocks, put them in the bucket, and then once they're in there, then I can fill everything up with all the other incidental stuff that I do with my time and my money. But these things are the ones I'm going to focus on. Family was one of them. I was grateful to get out of the hospital to be at my son's wedding. I was literally sitting on the edge of my bed praying that, you know what, I do not want to miss his wedding. That's a question I never thought I'd ask myself.
Yeah.
A month before, I'm running up a hill with a cinder block, for crying out loud. Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. But in hindsight, it was all a blessing. It really was. Changed my perspective, changed my attitude, made me grateful for everything. I wake up in the morning and I'm grateful instead of like, it's easy to say now, right?
Yeah.
But it was one of the best things that ever happened.
That's unbelievable that you went through that. This is your perspective, right? It inspires me more than I can say, and you do too. So
thanks, man. I appreciate
that's
that.
just unbelievable. Nico and I were kind of smirking at each other over here because
mission statement.
I've told him about your mission statement.
Oh, no kidding.
Which I've told you about your mission statement. I've thought about joining a different men's organization so that I can have
the same.
they're like, what's your
we can have the same mission
what's your mission statement? I'm like, well, it's to empower people and to
empower people living a true identity. That's really good. Yeah. Buddy John's got one of those.
It's so short and sweet, but so profound. I absolutely love it. But I also love that you, being a man of integrity, had to be real with yourself, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, hey, I'm saying that's what my mission statement is, but am I really leading by example?
Yeah, it was. Well, so even it took me 2 years to develop that mission statement through the Battle Cry process. Once I had that mission statement, I really felt that was my mission statement, but I really didn't understand it. But I was so sure that that's why I was here, and I just accepted it. Okay, that's my mission statement. I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do right now. But I was as sure as my name is John, I was positive that that's why I'm here. That is my mission statement, and I just let it go, and I'm like, you know what, this is gonna unfold, and I just let it unfold.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
and some of that, hey, you had faith about that mission statement.
Oh, yeah.
Just kind of went along, right?
Yep.
Hey, sometimes that's how it works, right? And in any aspects of life, even if you're not talking about spiritual faith, right? You could talk about a relationship,
Oh,
right?
sure.
You talk about marrying someone.
Yep.
Tell me, well, actually, the facts prove that there's no certainty that marriage is going to work,
Right.
right? But there's something about that where, hey, I have faith that this is going to work.
It's funny you bring that up. That was probably another thing that I was so sure of when I got married. I was like, it wasn't like, oh, do I got the right woman, or oh, is this going to work out? I mean, I was just as sure about marrying Dana than I was about my mission statement. Those are probably, if you ask me the two surest things, those two stick in my mind. Those are probably the most confident, decisions that I've made, that I was for sure that this is the right way to go. No question about it. And I don't do that a lot. I mean, I question myself a lot.
Yeah.
Those two, no-brainers. They were no-brainers.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. And how many years?
32, yeah.
32. That's amazing. So, bringing it all full circle, here you are, you've made these changes. How does that apply now to, you've mentioned you do some things differently with exercise.
Yeah.
You eat differently. What does some of those things look like?
So one of the main things I did is I stopped focusing on 100% about how I look and started focusing on mobility and movement and thinking about the next 20 years. I know there's a guy named Peter Attia. I don't know if you heard of Peter.
Yeah,
Attia.
that.
So
Peter
he's
Attia, MD.
Yeah,
right?
he's a longevity guy.
Yeah.
So some of his programs are they're like practical. He takes you through a process and okay, so what do you want to focus on? And he asks you, what do you want to do over the next 20 years? And it's basic stuff like, okay, I want to be able to get up off the floor after playing with my grandkids when I have grandkids, stuff like that. I want to be able to carry the suitcases when we go on a trip. I want to be able to, I don't want my wife having to call the neighbor to open up the pickle jar because I can't open up the pickle jar.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Really practical stuff. In an effort to have the mindset that on your 100th birthday, you're going to do a decathlon, a centurion decathlon. And I'm like, okay, in my mind, I'm like, okay, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But I'm like, wouldn't that be cool if I was able to do that? So that's the mentality that I have now, putting physical appearance second and being healthy and mobile and functional and able to get out of bed and able to do stretches and movements and stuff like that. So that's more my focus now. That was one of the biggest changes I made coming out. Actually, I just started that in January.
Okay.
I said, okay, so I don't need to be focusing on breaking the new deadlift record. I probably need to focus on getting up off the floor, because weightlifting does not necessarily you're the doctor. Weightlifting does not necessarily equal mobility. As a matter of fact, if you're lifting weights, some of that decreases your mobility.
Yeah. It has a lot to do with how you do it.
Yeah.
Right.
And when, and what are you doing before, and what are you doing after? And then it was that, and then it was injury prevention.
Yeah.
I'm like, you get older, you break a hip or something like that, and you can't be mobile for 6 months. If you're 70 and you're doing that, it's going to take you years to recover from that.
Yeah.
Where if you had an injury in your 20s, you'd bounce back in a month.
Well, while you've made that transition to focusing more on longevity and mobility, the base you have with the strength training, with the muscle you have, that also can't be understated, right?
Yeah.
Because that is the foundation, right? I would argue, for longevity's sake, if you could have one thing, that's the thing.
It would be muscle mass, for sure.
Right? Because,
I agree.
Because one of the things I say to some of my older clients is, for one, if you're weak and don't have a lot of muscle, you can do balancing exercises till you're blue in the face. But if you don't have the muscle to help you balance, that's a problem.
That's right.
Right? Or how about the fact that I don't want to fall, so I'm working balance exercises. Well, when's the last time you fell slow?
Right.
You don't.
That's
right?
a great point.
So you could do all these yoga things, and I love yoga. Yoga's
For
great
sure.
for a lot of reasons, but if you don't have those fast twitch muscle fibers developed that you get from strength training
Yeah.
and things like it, when you
Yeah.
need that, it's not going to happen. Or take it another step, you will fall. Plan on falling.
Yeah.
Train not to fall, but plan that you will fall. So how are you going to handle a fall? Well, if you have more muscle, more insulation, those connective tissues are strong, those
Right.
bones are strong, you might be okay.
Yeah, there's a big difference between, standing on one leg and balancing yourself and standing on one leg and holding 30-pound dumbbells in your hand.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, or even just one of my favorite exercises with clients who are, that's their priority, is even just pretending you're like a little kid hopping through the creek from stone to stone, right? It's one thing to balance on one leg, but can you balance yourself when you're already in motion?
Yeah.
Can you react, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, strength training, the benefits of that definitely can't be. So I'm sure that has provided just such a great
He
foundation
was
for
talking
you.
about grip strength. Grip strength was a big
This
one.
is Peter Attia again?
Yeah. Grip strength is a big determining factor. He focuses on VO2 max, which I went for the VO2 max test in January. It was horrible because I spent the last year and a half
Yeah.
just walking around the gym. I fixed that. I'm supposed to go next week to get it better.
Yeah.
I had it at Excellent a long time ago.
Where did you do that?
There's a place in Warrenville called Live Lean RX. I'll give that place a plug.
Oh,
Vince,
yeah,
I know
yeah.
Vince is the owner.
Live Lean RX, yeah, and that's
Yeah.
also where you recommended if someone wanted to do a DEXA scan.
DEXA scan. If you're using a scale, yeah, okay, so don't use a scale.
Yeah, because it's just so limiting, right? It's just one.
People focus on losing weight. You don't want to lose weight. You want
Yeah.
to lose fat.
Yeah,
And how do you know what you're losing if you just jump on a scale?
yeah,
You need a scale and a tape measure. I went to a phase where I was just like measuring the circumference, my girth right at my belly button. It's always been my biggest
Yeah.
dimension.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's all I'm going to focus on. Is
Yeah.
get rid of that. I'm like, okay, so I could get rid of that, but at what cost?
yeah.
So now I'm just gonna do cardio 5 days a week, and then my muscles are gonna shrink, and then I
Yeah.
get to say, hey, look, and I'm at 34, but now I look like a hanger.
Oh, my
like
God.
My shirt's on a hanger.
Yeah, it's so true. The most ripped I've ever been, I was probably in my early 20s. I had the hip flexor veins and the six pack, but
I never had that.
my
I never
shoulders
had that.
disappeared.
Oh yeah.
They just disappeared. I looked like I remember I think one of my clients said, you kind of look like a runner. And I go, nothing.
How insulting can you be?
Nothing against
A sprinter.
runners.
I'd be a sprinter.
Yeah.
Not a
Usain
not a
Bolt, right,
marathon
baby,
guy.
right?
Yeah,
But nothing against runners, but when you're a weightlifter, that's not exactly what you want to hear. So anyways, we're almost done here, John. So is there anything you'd like to impart onto our listeners where you feel like you have a particular message or thought you want to share to those watching?
Yeah, and I don't know specifically who the audience is, but it's not a crime to put yourself first. The sacrificial giving of putting yourself last is going to end up biting you in the ass. So take the time and take care of yourself. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of anybody. So make yourself a priority. And don't feel guilty about it. Don't feel shameful about it. You earned it. You're worth it. Do it. Yeah,
That's
make it a
awesome.
priority.
And I love that because, we have John Considine, Brian Quick. We've had 4 or 5 men over the age of 50. And
John Considine.
Yeah, who you have that guy on?
He's 70 and he could kill me with his pinky for crying out loud.
Yeah, he's at a whole nother.
God, he is a.
He was just me and Nico were just.
I almost said he's a freak.
He probably take this as a compliment.
Yeah, right.
He really.
I hope so.
Well, he was on here, and Nico and I were kind of doing one of these where we're looking at each other, where he's talking about how he's made some of these changes, but he has gotten older, so he has to prioritize recovery in a different way. So he can't really train hard 5-6 days a week like he used to. Sometimes he might need to rest 24 hours. We're just like, I'm like, do I need to get my testosterone checked or something? I'm like, what's wrong with me?
24 hours every other 24 hours?
Yeah. But the message that's consistent is that.
Yeah.
The taking the time for yourself. Don't wait till it's too late, right? Take these wake-up calls. Prioritize yourself. Be selfish.
Yeah, you're getting signs. You're getting signs and you're getting nudges. All these little things, don't ignore them. I mean, you get those nudges and signs for a reason.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a hit bottom experience. You could start today.
Let's end there.
Let's end.
John, thank you so much, man.
You bet, brother. Thanks, man.